Now we're going to talk about assessments. When you initially get a client, there are a number of assessments you need to do to determine need. So most importantly is a threat and vulnerability assessment. Does this person actually need security? What are the threats that you're going to face? What are the vulnerabilities with this client or their sites? And how do you mitigate those, right? This is an ethical approach to providing security services as opposed to just throwing guys on a detail and trying to make as much money as you can, right? You want to provide a valuable service if you want it to be long-term. Threat and vulnerability assessment is that. There's also a protective intelligence assessment, which is you will have a principal who you'll do a full workup on background, social media, their place of work, their routes of travel, anything pertaining to this person and their movements. You will do an assessment on that to identify threats. The internet now is so dominant, especially with social media and all these avenues of communication. It's actually, with open source information, open source just means it's not classified or government protected or what have you, right? You can actually find this out online. You can pretty much find about anybody online, anything that you want to know.
So is the protective intelligence assessment predominantly online at this point? Or do you actually have someone who watches them drive, like they go to Starbucks at 9 a.m. and then they do this and then they...
The protective intelligence assessment is just an analysis initially of what are their movements and what do they do. We're not moving with them or anything yet.
Okay, so just in their general life, what communication lines are they on?
Yeah. What state are they in? What city? What neighborhood?
Got it. So it's not like a minute-to-minute type of situation.
No, this is an overall assessment of what their activities are and what threats they may face. Okay, good. Beyond that, if you're protecting a residence, there's a residential risk assessment. For all these assessments, we bring in subject matter experts that we work closely with, and they do all of these for us. We work them up on each client before we start service, so we can inform them effectively on what their needs are. We want to advise them well, so this is what we use for that. A lot of companies don't do that. There are a number of them that do, and those are the most professional, busiest, and they have the longer term contracts, just because it's doing it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, it makes sense. If one guy says, I just want this and this, but they have this gaping vulnerability somewhere.
Exactly.
Then.
Yeah, I want 10 armed guys at the front gate, but there's no fence in the back. Yeah, that might not work.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then we do those things. We'll have our conversations with the clients based on what our findings are. So we'll give a findings and recommendations. Once we land on what the package should be, we call it a security package. What that may mean, you have a residential team only. It may mean you have that and a corporate office team. It may mean you have those two things plus an executive protection team. You may protect one principal or 5. It just depends on the account.
Does the point of contact or client give you, to start off with, I want to protect XYZ, and then you do the site assessments, then you kind of combine the two, or you do that just purely based on what you as LSI say they should have?
Good question. It's a give and take with the clients.
Okay, good.
So a lot of times clients come and they say, I want this.
Right.
Sometimes it's right based on all these findings. A lot of times it has to be tweaked, or sometimes it's just wrong. So we don't take every client. Some clients may not need us. I don't want to upsell them. I can give them a product or another company that can solve their problem, save them money, build that relationship. Now they're in my network and we can, help each other out.
So you have some integrity.
A little bit. Yeah. It's key to our success, so that's a big deal. Yeah. A high profile client, for example, who is very prominent on social media and that type of thing, is traveling abroad. And on their social media, they would list exactly where they were going to be, and when they were there. They're on social media, plenty of pictures, wearing a lot of jewelry. So now they're time and place predictable, which is a no-no. We don't want that to happen with our clients if we're protecting a principal specifically. So this individual was time and place predictable, 4 armed guys. It was a country in Europe, went into the apartment and robbed her, tied her up, bound, gagged, the whole thing, stole over $1 million of jewelry. Obviously not the outcome that you want if you're providing security. So there's also challenges that we deal with clients. Sometimes they don't want as much security as they need. So if we have a client that is posting like that on social media and we know it's a threat and a vulnerability, we will advise against that, of course. If they don't listen, sometimes that might not be a good contract to have because you're going to get hit at some point. If you have millions of dollars of jewelry and people know where you are all the time, you're done. There are bad people, right? Okay, good. So do we want to be a part of that? No. In one of these examples, the principal asked their security to go handle something else and leave them. They figured they were safe in their, wherever they were staying, hotel, what have you. And that's where they got hit. So there are times where you have to really articulate yourself, explain the need for security, why you do and don't do certain things. And there are times where you have to walk away from an account because it's unsafe. Another example, I was a young agent. I just came into a detail lead spot. So I was running a residence. The clients had a budget that they wanted to cut way down. They did cut it way down. I complained for about 6 months. Emails, phone calls, what have you. This is not a good idea.
Now, what kind of client was this?
It was a high profile client, right? Well-known out in the media, social media, all those types of things. So the residence was known. So it was open source information, another no-no. That happened before I even got there. Anyway, so I made recommendations to beef up the security detail based on the need. I was not listened to. It was so bad and so light at one point that somebody hopped the front gate, walked all the way into the house.
But didn't you warn them?
Yeah, so prior to that, I said, listen, if you do this, someone will end up in your master bedroom. I have no idea why I said that. It's what hit me and I knew something bad was gonna happen, okay? So I tell him that, sure enough, hops the front gate. We had one guy on duty who couldn't have covered this entire property. There's no way. You can't watch cameras and lock doors at the same time. The planets were aligned. The person of interest found the open door and ended up in the master bedroom. So the nanny actually had to make contact and call him down to the kitchen. Then our agent responded, talked him down, sheriffs arrived and effected the arrest for trespassing. We got an emergency restraining order. It was a whole thing, but that should have never happened. So only thing that saved me is I had complained so badly that one of the points of contact told me I was going to lose my job if I complained one more time. So I went pretty hard. Now, in hindsight, as hopefully an older, wiser agent, that might have been something I should have walked away from. Absolutely. We were very lucky. It was a mentally disturbed female, tiny lady, not violent at all. So we lucked out. If it was somebody violent or intending harm or something like that, it was all bad. There were no principals home. One of the kids actually was in a different room. So it could have been really bad. So sometimes that's why I say I had mentors tell me all money's not good money. And all he means is just, you have to put yourself in a position to succeed. If someone does not allow you to do that, you got to walk.
Right.
Okay.
Would you be willing to walk us through a typical residential site assessment?
This is a broad overview. So it starts off with going to the site. For example, it's a residence. You go to the site. You want to see what are the points of ingress and egress. Ingress is where do people come in. Egress is where do people go out. For example, the front gate, they do both things there. Is there a front gate? Is it a gated community? So that's even an outer gate. Is there a gated community? Is there a gate at the residence? How far is it from the gate to the structures? How many structures are on the property? How many doors in and out? Windows, what are the points of access to the residence? So you'll go walk through, look at all of these things. Does it have an exterior fence or wall or anything? Does it have intrusion detection systems? They're either infrared beams or cameras with analytics that will alert somebody if somebody comes onto the property when they're not supposed to. So there's a number of things to work through. That's very broad, but you want to identify all those things. It's part of your assessments to identify what you need to cover, right? So if it's completely locked down except for one front gate, good, you probably want somebody at the front gate and then maybe somebody to rove around. If there are multiple points of entry, depending on the size of the property, you might need more than one person. So the recommendations will be based on what you find in your site assessment. The other value of a site assessment is you got to go and get your hands on it. You can do a lot remotely with Google Earth from above and that whole thing. You can prep everything, but you actually want to walk through and see what are the locks on the doors, what are the locks on the windows. So there's quite a bit that actually goes into it, but that gives you your hands-on, real-time view of what you need to solve.
Do you have like basic laws or rules that you always have to have in place in site assessment, or do you have like a checklist of things that are
There are checklists.
okay?
Yeah.
So it's always like there's like a standard basically,
Yes.
and it always has to be at that standard.
Yeah, so there's a baseline standard. Obviously, every property is different, right? It has different systems or what have you, gates, doors, what have you. So it's going to vary, but you will have your basic checklist of these are the things I need to cover in my assessment.
Is it as detailed as like, can I see what's inside the house from 150 feet away? Or is it like reflective windows? Like, is it that detailed?
Yeah, you can look at quite a bit of those things. Good, what rooms have power, what rooms don't have power. You know, you can get incredibly in depth.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now some of these depend on how much does the client want. Some of them want it full boat, and then other ones go, good, I'm not so worried about whatever. I want you to cover this other thing. So we'll still check everything and tell them what we think that they need.
Right.
And then we'll meet in the middle depending on what is their tolerance for security and what do we need to be providing. And we can do a lot from the office. Like I said, you got Google Earths and all that kind of thing, but it would be probably good to go to one as well.
Okay.
Yeah. That is your overall view of the assessments that we do. Initially, coming into a contract, investigations are a little different, but that's a different kind of assessment, right? Now you're in the contract, you've been servicing it, you have a threat, meaning a person, and you'll do a background on that guy, which will be a threat assessment on that individual. So there are different types. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the various types of assessments that we do, where we do them, and why.